Hello, this is Victoria Duff, and I want to welcome you to Latona's Open House. Today we are showcasing BigFishTackle.com. I'd like to introduce Michael Hodgson. Michael, is that how you pronounce your name?
It is, yes, Hodgson.
Okay. Say hello.
Hi, Victoria. Thanks for having us. Appreciate it.
We're thrilled to have you here. Okay, let's just move on into the housekeeping. If anybody is having problems with audio or wants to ask a question, please use the screen, the software screen on your on the right of your screen. So, all right, here's the deal. Annual revenue of $49,500, annual profit of $43,500, and current asking price of $260,000. Michael, please tell us a little bit about the history of your site. Why did it get started? How did it get started? What have you been doing with it? What are your goals?
Okay, so Victoria, the site launched in 1997, and was initially an e-commerce store. We grew that featured fishing tackle and outdoor products, and we grew the sale in that first couple years, the first 18 months, to $96,000 a month. But we were doing drop shipping, and very early in the process, we were doing drop shipping, and it wasn't what it is today. So there were some challenges there. As our revenues grew, our margins shrunk, ultimately ending up in that 9 to 10% range, which drop shipping has come a long way since then. But just being that the margin was shrinking, we had a staff, we had overhead. We had always, from the time we launched the store, we had always had content on the site and forums on the site to attract the anglers, figuring that if they came to the site for information about fishing, they would also buy tackle there, which proved to be a really good model. And we had a high retention on the site, a high return shopper rate, and the sales were growing. It was the real challenge was the drop shipping model. So as things progressed, we had a corporate sponsor reach out to us that knew the traffic on the site, had done some work with us in other areas, and was interested in sponsoring the site. So at that point, we made the decision to go to a content model supported by advertising, do away with the store, and start to sell advertising based on the user activity on the website. And that was about 2002, and that's kind of evolved over the years. And in late 2000, if you go to the next slide there that you were on a moment ago, you can see the timeline there. About late 2003, we got a rather large offer to purchase the site. We didn't end up taking that offer, but we did ramp up the marketing and promoting of the site quite a bit, started to upgrade the ad technology, which was still a little early then as well. And that's where you see that big spike. Interestingly enough, over the last 4 years, we've had comparable revenue. The revenue's been around $96,000 up until the last year, which we had some dramatic changes. I took a position in August of 2013 and just have not dedicated the time to the site that it really merits. So the revenues have dropped off considerably since then, but we're pretty consistent at that 95,000 mark annually prior to that, with a lot less overhead than the store was and the previous time frame, that big spike you see in 2003.
So basically you're saying that if somebody could take this over and devote more time to it, there's no reason why revenues wouldn't go up again.
It really, yes, and it, it really depends on the direct sales. The direct sales is by far the biggest profit margin of the site, And if you have a salesperson that is, so I'm actively working the site in the evenings now. I took another position last August, and I'm not available during working hours to actually work on the site. I maintain the forums and I maintain the content in the evenings, but I'm not actively selling advertising direct. The site is monetized today by AdSense, Google's product, for filling remnant fill advertising, and then another ad network, and then a handful of purchase direct advertisers that actually purchase direct through the website. But as far as a concerted effort towards sales, that's not going on at all today.
Now you
So
have,
absolutely, there's a lot of potential.
you have a
I'm sorry, go ahead.
large list, a database of advertisers that have either already advertised on the site or are considering doing that. So it makes direct advertising reasonably easy. Am I correct in that?
It is, in the sense that actually finding the advertisers, we have a database of over 1,500 clients that have advertised with us in the past, or people that we've had discussions with, and including ad agencies that continue to advertise. There is some time associated to reaching out to those advertisers in their cycle. So fishing is a very cyclical sport. It is year-round. Different fishing seasons are ongoing throughout the year, and there is few months throughout the year where a whole bunch of the seasons collide. But it's important that a salesperson is reaching out to prospective clients during,
And of course,
prior to their cycle.
of course, the direct sales of ads puts more money in your pocket. I would guess that an ad network would also be able to totally fill up your site with ads, but the direct sales are really where the money is.
Absolutely, that's a great point. So, for example, through Google AdSense, you're going to be at what's called what we call a CPM, is a common term associated to the advertising. It's cost per 1,000 times we show an ad. So in Google AdSense, we're going to be anywhere from about 85 cents to $3 per 1,000, depending on the season. And with the ad network, we have a yearly contract now with a $1.65 CPM that we also serve. But a direct ad sale is typically going to be anywhere from $3 to $12 per 1,000. So you can see there's a big disparity in what we call remnant fill versus direct sold advertising. And the value is certainly there for the advertiser because it's such a qualified market. Most of our advertisers are products like, for example, the slide we're looking at now, you see John Deere, you see fishing products, you see some of the ads that are running. They're very geared towards a heavy-sided male demographic in that 28 to 45 range, age-wise. And so it does lend itself well to a wide range of products, not just fishing tackle-related products, a demographic similar to the NASCAR demographic.
Now, look, speaking of the forums bring an enormous number of people to your site. Talk a little bit about how popular and active your forums are.
You bet. Now, about 60%, so about 40% of the monthly traffic associated to the site is for organic search. We don't do any outside marketing at all now. But that 60% number, on the other side of that, minus the other category, which accounts for about 6 to 8% of the traffic. But roughly 60% on average of the visitors associated to the site are going to be those forum users coming back to check fishing reports, to research fishing that they may not be familiar with or have questions about. So a large amount of the traffic associated with the site is going to be from that 60-ish percentile of returning visitors that are not finding us through a marketing effort or an outside source, but actually are just regular users of the site, which is primarily focused on that forum.
How many forums do you have?
Okay, so there's There's about a little over 200 forums. Actually, and the way that breaks down is you have a fishing forum and then you have boards within that forum that are kind of, the best way to envision that is like a folder. So a forum is a collection of boards, and we have over 200 boards on the forum. The most active are by fishing discipline, which is freshwater, saltwater fly fishing, and then also the state boards. So of those, the primary used boards are probably 70 of the boards associated to that forum.
Okay, now what are we looking at here?
Okay, so as we talked about early on, bigfishtackle.com was an e-commerce site and very popular among the anglers. When we decided to go to a content model, we had a lot of bookmarks on the category pages within the shopping section. So as opposed to taking those sections down because we weren't going to actively be selling tackle anymore, what we did was open that up to advertisers that were interested in promoting their products on a per category basis. So up in the blue bar at the, above the outdoor buyer's guide there, if you go up above that blue bar and you see that shopping, if you were to mouse over that on the site itself, you're going to get a drop down of about 13 categories. Each of those 13 categories have 9 advertising spots. So for example, camping or freshwater fishing or saltwater fishing, where retailers and manufacturers who sell direct to consumers can purchase ads. So we sell those ad zones, and those are static ads. Those wouldn't be rotating ads. Excuse me.
All right, tell us a little bit about your traffic and about this spike here.
Okay, so from time to time, the spike is, you know, and I don't have any, I'm not looking at the analytics, but I can tell you a lot of times throughout the season we get those spikes. In particular, it's usually related to an event. So a lot of the forum members have events that they put on. The Burbot Bash would be one. Actually, I think Wyoming Fish and Game has taken that over and actually has a Burbot Bash. But in the day, not that long ago, the forum members would put together these events and all go meet and fish together. And we still have those going on, and they're kind of, although they're not directly sponsored by the website bigfishtackle.com, the users kind of use it as an area to all meet and plan the event. And so a lot of times you see those big spikes throughout the year predicated on events that are going on and things of that nature. But as you can see, the traffic's starting to really stabilize. We've had some challenges in the past with Google algorithm changes, but are starting to get on the other side of that. We had to make some big changes on the site and are continuing to do so to stabilize the traffic and get it back on that upswing. But as you can see, that return visitor rate in the forum that we talked about keeps it pretty stable year-round.
Now, what are the challenges a new buyer would face in maintaining the traffic? And
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Some of the challenges that the new buyer would face, I mean, the day-to-day operations as far as maintaining the user base in the forum is, I mean, there is about 30 moderators on the forum, about a little over a dozen that are really active, and then an administrator that's really active that are all volunteers within the forum just out of their love of fishing, and the community on the site as well. But that's an important component of it. I mean, that's from even today, although I don't have the time that I had previously to work on the site, I find myself trying to maintain that forum as much as I can on a daily basis, which is a good hour or so a day of just kind of making sure that there's no spamming in the forum. There's a lot of help with the moderators, but that's still an integral component of kind of bringing back that returning traffic. I think while you're on this slide, Victoria, a couple things to really note as well is the bounce rate. That's the annual bounce rate associated with the site. And as most of the webmasters and website owners know out there, it's an exceptional bounce rate. Most of the people that are finding the site through search are sticking on the site and registering. Also, the page sessions, almost 6 pages per user and 5 minutes average user sessions are pretty high, even for a forum.
Okay, I noticed that you're mostly, most of your traffic comes from the United States, but I also see Canada and the United Kingdom and Australia and Germany. These are big fishing areas. Uh, what do you think about, is it possible to extend the reach of the site into Canada, United Kingdom, and Germany, and some other countries?
It absolutely is, and those are big fishing markets, and it's definitely, I mean, in the U.S. there's over 55 million anglers, and it's interesting, we've always marketed to the U.S. Just because it's such a huge population of anglers. And there hasn't been a lot of focus on those other countries. A lot of the traffic you see associated to those other countries are primarily people that are in those countries that are interested in finding out. They're going to be traveling to the U.S., so they want to find information associated to fishing here. So that accounts for a lot of that traffic. It's research out of the country of people looking to fish in the U.S. But absolutely the opportunity presents itself that if it was possible to reach out, it is possible, but if there was some energy put into reaching out to get moderators from those regions in the forums and start to build that, there's absolutely that potential.
Now, are you doing anything with, say, Canada, for example?
You know, there's just so much crossover. A lot of people in Canada fish the United States and vice versa. A lot of people in the United States fish Canada. So we haven't made a concerted effort there to furnish the fishing report activity that we do in the U.S. But again, it certainly is a possibility. It's just something we haven't explored because our focus has been on the U.S. And then in particularly in the last 12 months, you know, with the limited time that's being utilized on the site itself, we're kind of trying to keep that focus just to not splinter the efforts of the limited time that we're working on the site now.
Now, talk a little bit about your presence on the social networks.
Okay, so the social networks, we do have a presence on the social networks. Facebook accounts for some traffic. Now, these numbers we're looking at are annual numbers. So, although we do have, you know, over 5,000 likes on the Facebook page, and there is some activity there, it's not an area we spend a lot of energy at this point, just because these being annual numbers, they don't account for the kind of traffic or organic search does, which is pretty heavy volume on the organic search side. And then building backlinks as well. We find a lot of traffic associated to backlinks. So we focus our energies there, but kind of an overview of that slide you just showed. If we could back up just for a second, Victoria, and I'll kind of give you some highlights of the numbers associated to social media. So Facebook, we have over 5,000 likes. Bloggers stumble upon and Yahoo Answers are typically people either bookmarking the site in those applications or asking questions, and people are referring them to bigfishtackle.com for answers related to fishing. But Twitter, we do have an active page on, 1,900 plus followers on that. And then YouTube, we have a channel with about 292 branded videos that we uploaded there, with 870 subscribers and a little over 1.5 million views on those. So we do maintain a presence on those, just knowing that they are going to account for some traffic, but they aren't primary sources of traffic at this point.
What kind of push do you do on Twitter? Because I would think that that would be a... Go ahead.
Well, you know, as far as Twitter goes, we really just don't do as much as we probably could because, again, our the time is limited, and so I spend, and I know we're going to get to this later in the presentation, but I spend about 4 hours a day during the week in the evenings, 3 to 4 hours a night on the site, and then probably 8 hours or so on the weekend. And it's just not enough time to focus all those energies, so we try to keep a real focus on organic search placement, on maintaining the forums and moderating the forums, and then adding content to the site. So there is definitely a big upside if we were more active in the social media.
All right, talk a little bit about your excellent numbers here.
Okay, so this report kind of it outlines where some of our search engine penetration, and then also probably the more gleaming number there is the external backlinks. So we have a little over 1.3 million sites that link into bigfishtackle.com that account for, on the referral side, quite a bit of traffic, and also make the organic search efforts by having content-specific links into the site. It makes those organic search efforts a lot easier as well. And as you can see from the trust flow and the citation flow numbers, which are very respectable numbers on any scale, but certainly within the fishing niche, they're extremely high numbers, just because the niche in itself doesn't have those huge high-profile sites that a more general demographic would. And the slide you just moved on to, Victoria, is kind of indicative of the variety of links associated to the site. Or excuse me, this is kind of outlining some of the different sections in the site, which is, you know, we have, oh, I'm sorry. So the slide we're on now is kind of indicative of the links into the site. So there's typically fishing charter and guide websites, fishing-related directories, some of the manufacturers and retailers. Those are the types of links into the website.
Okay, talk a little bit about what we're seeing here. You have high valuation.
Okay, so on the analytics preview we're looking at right now, that goes back to 2010. And interestingly enough, you see the big spike in that mid 2011 mark. So we were at that time actively, you know, doing AdWords and had a lot of marketing campaigns. Matter of fact, doing shows and some of, you know, the outside marketing efforts. So although the traffic was a lot higher, our costs associated with that traffic, with I think internally we were up to about 8 employees at that point. The cost to maintain that traffic mark was definitely eating into the margins associated with the site. So although historically traffic is down, it's, I mean, one of the things to consider is just how high it was in 2012, but then the costs associated to that. And as you can see from the pie chart on the lower right corner, today the traffic is maintained almost exclusively by organic search and then also return visitors. So there's very low overhead associated to maintaining the traffic as it stands today.
Do you ever have a booth at any of the sportsman shows, for example?
You know, we did. There was a time period that we were actively doing the sportsman shows. It's an effective way to build the traffic associated to the site, and it's an effective way to reach the advertisers as well. We just found that expenditure versus reward, it's a fine balance. It's something you got to stay very close to, and without the staff that we once had, it's just not a viable option for us today. Done correctly and monitored closely, it's an effective tool to drive traffic to the site.
All right. Tell
Um,
us a little bit about this dip here in late 2013, and I see that the traffic is increasing. Um,
right, right. So this is an annual look at traffic associated to the website. And again, we've had some challenges with the Google algorithm changes. They've had a series with Penguin, Panda, and then ultimately Hummingbird was the most recent of the algorithm changes. We had some challenges in the sense that the forum, because of the way the forum displays, there's multiple ways you can view a thread within the forum under what's called the threaded mode, or a variety of different ways so you can see who's responding to what questions. With the algorithm changes at Google, it created what Google has coined duplicate content, because we had multiple URLs in this that was displaying the same content. From a user perspective, it's an advantage, but for Google, there was some challenges in that we had to restructure that code so that we made it clear to Google that that wasn't in fact duplicate content. So that accounts for that big upswing as we started to address some of the algorithm changes. And this is the view slide we're on now is the actual page views per month. You can see it's pretty stable at about 700,000 plus page views monthly, and that again is on an upswing. And that we can account for close to 6 page views per user once we get a user registered to the site. And we're starting to get good organic placement again, and have for the last particularly 6 months, and are working diligently on that again. And when I say diligently, it's with the limited time that I have, because essentially it's myself at this point. You can see the page views are pretty steady.
okay, tell us a little bit
And
about
then,
your admin.
okay, so the admin system, there's about 9 admins associated to the site. They're all very similar in use. The slide you have up now is of the fishing articles section. There's a little over 2,000, close to 3,000 articles in there. That is still regularly maintained. We get a great source of articles from people wanting to promote products, pro staffers wanting to promote their sponsors. So we have a great flow of good content coming into the site. The inset you see over the top of that article section within the site is the admin section. So what that allows us to do is feature areas. So for example, we get a new article in and we want to feature it on the home page or on the sidebar of the site to give it more exposure. And that admin section is where we control all of that, approve the actual articles after they're submitted, and then decide how we want them displayed and in what categories and things. The forums are very similar. So for example, this is the forum admin we have here on this slide. And basically you can make changes associated to the boards. You can assign new moderators. And it's kind of flip-flop from the previous slide. So the admin is in the back, and the inset of the forum is on the lower left corner. You'll also notice that little arrow in the bottom of the inset. There's a little arrow in that center section. So some of the controls associated to the administration of the forum are available for the admins and the moderators in that section of the site. So the user, when they're viewing the post, doesn't see the things on that arrow, but the moderators and administrators and myself see that. So it's kind of twofold in the amount of administration. The slide you have up now, Victoria, is a user profile. So what that does is when someone registers for the site, it automatically takes their username, in this case the angler. So it says, hello, the angler, and if they go to this user page, it's going to kind of keep track of their activity, the activity they want to track associated to use of the site, and display it for other members as well. So in the section below the user avatar, which is the fishing picture there, would be the most recent video that user posted, some of the images they posted, some of their forum activity. And every user that's registered gets a page like this, and it's kind of a way for users to, similar to like a Facebook or any other social network, where you can kind of communicate with other members and see their activity associated to the site.
How many registered users do you have, and do you send out email, newsletters, promotions?
Okay, great question. Okay, so there's a little over 100,000 registered users to the site. We do send out newsletters, but that is a different. So you can register for the site and not necessarily get the email newsletter. So we have about 22,000 double opt-in subscribers to the newsletter. We also have a private message feature within the forum where you can actually private message everybody in the forum as well as the administrator. And the answer to your question, as far as there was a time period that we sent out newsletters weekly, but with time being what it is with one person managing the site, we just have not in the last 6 months or so. But certainly that user base is used to getting newsletters, and it is a great tool to not only reach the users, but to provide additional value for advertisers that are purchasing banner ads within the website, or to sell sponsorship of the newsletter as an independent advertising solution for clients that want to reach the anglers.
And once again, this is an area of promotion that could also drive additional traffic to your site.
Oh, absolutely. When we are actively sending the newsletter, it does account for big spikes in the traffic. And it's very, I mean, going back to the slide that we showed previously, you know, that the spike in the traffic, that could have been a very popular newsletter that was sent out. We do see that. So it most definitely, particularly if there's, you know, something timely that there's certain fishing season, great picture someone uploaded and things of that nature, definitely can attract a lot of people very quickly to the website.
Okay, moving on to revenues. Talk a little bit about, go ahead.
You bet. So, yeah, I noticed we're on the revenue slide, and it's interesting. This slide shows very clearly exactly what we've been talking about. In the sense that about August of last year, I took a position with another company and stopped actively reaching out to the clients to renew advertising or to make them aware that that their ad cycle is coming, and it's a good time to be advertising on the website, and you can see that decline. So in July of 2013, where you see revenues right about that 10K mark, was pretty indicative of the previous 12 months. I think the total revenue for the previous 12 months from June 2012 to July 2013 was just over $100,000 for the year. Not actively being able to sell advertising, you can see that decline and see the monthly revenue start to drop off. It's pretty stable on the low end of what you see right now, in that two AdSense and one other ad network can support advertising at the levels that it is now without selling any direct advertising, although some advertisers do book directly on the website right now, and that accounts for kind of fluctuations.
Your expenses are low for such a big site.
Yeah, expenses are very low. It's right around that 550 mark, and it does kind of go up and down here a little bit, but that 550 mark is pretty indicative of where it stays. Some of the drop-offs there, I think, were, so the revenue, or excuse me, the expenses are pretty much isolated to the hosting, Constant Contact, which we use to email and still maintain, although we haven't been actively using it. And that's to send to that 22,000 emails. We use Constant Contact. Some of the fluctuations account for as the email list grows and drops off. The subscription price for Constant Contact changes. But primarily those expenses are fairly stable at that $550 mark.
And you don't have any paid employees, or how do you work that? How many people actually work for the company?
Okay, so today it's myself. Literally, and for probably since August of last year, even prior to August of last year, so a little over a year, it's been just myself working in the evenings, probably 3 to 4 hours a night, and then on the weekends, probably 8, on a good weekend, 12 hours over the weekend, just keeping things maintained.
So tell us, what do you do when you wake up in the morning and have your coffee? What's the first thing you do to run the site, and how do you continue that?
Okay, so Victoria, as of now, the first thing I do after I get my coffee is get my car and go to work. So in the morning, I really am not active on the site. So I took a position with another company, and I'm working that during the day. And then in the evenings, sometime after dinner time, I'll get on and work 3 to 4 hours maintaining the real key, what we recognize as the key focus area. And I say we because I have an investor, but he's not actively and a majority shareholder in the company. But he's not actively involved in the business. So, but we recognize that our focus has to be that organic search, maintaining and moderating the forum, and continuing to add fresh content to the website. So during the day, day-to-day operations, Monday through Friday, about 12 to 18 hours a week is dedicated to that, which is the bulk of the time during the week that we're available to do that. And very little, I do try to communicate on the sales front if someone has questions, but usually if a question comes in during the day, I'll answer it that evening. And the sales cycle gets a little long, so it can, prevent us from being able to act on sales as quickly as we should. And the reason I stress that is just because I think that someone taking over the site, that would be your primary focus right away, is to get re-engaged with the client base and start to reach out to them and make them aware of things like ad sizes. We changed ad sizes on the site and upgraded to bigger banner ads on 2 different ad zones. And some of our advertisers aren't aware of that. Majority are not. So I think that's where the focus would need to be. Realistically today, our focus is in driving more traffic to build up the base revenue that requires no active sales during business hours, because that's realistically the position we find ourselves in right now.
Now, how much time are you going to be able to devote to training the new owner in operating the site and giving the new owner advice on where the most important areas to work on right away are?
Now, on something like that, I think that it would merit, what I would probably end up doing is actually taking some time off, which I'm absolutely available to do. So I could take, depending on whether I was training a team to take over the site and they were bringing the site into fold, which, I mean, over the years, we get probably 1 or 2 offers a year. Usually they're from ad networks who own multiple sites. So, and they're wanting to bring another property into the fold and have a lot more available ad inventory to sell their clients. So if it was that kind of scenario, then I could be available to take up to a week off and actually physically go to the location, train their staff on how the admin works, the ad operation side works, and things of that nature. If it was an individual, again, I could take the time off and train them as well. It really depends on the business model and what direction the new owner would want to go. There is a lot of viable ways to go on the business model. And now, as far as availability on an ongoing basis after training, it's something that I would be prepared to do. It would just not be, it wouldn't be at any greater degree than I am today. So it would be probably that 15 to, on the high side, 25 hours a week, including the weekend, that I would be available on an ongoing basis. But certainly I could take some time off to train.
Now, it strikes me that with the right kind of effort, this site could be much bigger than it is now.
It absolutely could, and it absolutely has. I think that the part of the challenge for me, I know one question a lot of potential buyers would have would be, well, if there's so much potential upside on the site, how come you know, you're not pursuing that growth today? And it really comes down to our company, the company First Light Net that owns BigFishTackle.com, was a network of fishing and hunting and outdoors websites of about 412 websites. So needless to say, BigFishTackle.com was a component of the revenue associated to coming in. But as we've sold off, and our intention is to sell off, we're exiting the company now, and we've been selling off properties and literally only have 4 active sites today, and still have about 100+ domain names that we're actively selling as well. So part of the reason for the change and not pursuing the growth ourselves on just BigFishTackle.com is the reality that I took a position that I feel financially, for me personally, offers a more direct upside, and then also it's a position very close to my house, working with a very talented team, and so as a standalone product, BigFishTackle.com, from a personal viability financially, it's just the growth potential is there. It's just it's going to take a concerted effort of work, and I'm not a programmer, and it definitely, the future of the growth of the site would depend on an active programmer assisting with bringing the site more current as far as coding goes, and continuing to work on the organic search efforts that require coding as well.
Now,
Was that
about the other domain names and websites, can you talk a little bit about those? And if a new buyer wanted to buy Big Fish, would you be able to do a package deal?
We absolutely would, and we have, as I said before, we have about 100 domain names, so rather than list all those off, I mean, we certainly could do a package deal. It would probably change the dynamics of the deal a little bit, but I mean, some of the higher profile names we have are fishing.net and fishing.org and fishing.us. Fishing.mobi, those are some of the higher profile names, and absolutely we could structure that into a deal. So yes, absolutely, that's a possibility. We are exiting the space, so we don't plan on competing, and would be happy to sign a non-disclosure agreement and non-compete clause associated to you know, not competing directly with BigFishTackle.com as far as anything goes.
So any interested buyers should raise the question with the listing broker Adam Beebe if they're to take a look at some of the other sites and domain names that you have.
Absolutely, yeah. That would be the way to go. They could talk to Adam about possibly if they were interested in acquiring a domain name, I mean, one of the nice things about bigfishtackle.com is it has a huge, well-respected brand within the fishing community, and it's a very well-known brand since '97. So there's a lot of energy into search, a lot of dollars associated to marketing and building that brand. So I mean, standalone, it's the marquee property of the properties we had. But certainly, absolutely, someone could talk to Adam about potentially adding one or multiple of the domain names associated to the deal. If we could, Victoria, too, I'd like to back up for a quick sec, because you asked a question regards to future expectations for the site, and I think that it merits touching on a little bit some of the different directions that someone could go. I mentioned early on about bigfishtackle.com being an e-commerce store. And again, it was a dropship model, and drop shipping had not evolved to where it is today. I think that certainly there's a great potential to put a tackle store on the site and start to sell retail again. For a drop shipper who didn't inventory the product today, it's a lot more viable than it was in '97. But even more attractive for a retailer who had a physical location and was inventorying product that could maintain that margin, or even a manufacturer or a wholesaler who wanted to sell direct to the consumer, that would increase the margin even more. So there's a lot of opportunity associated to building a tackle outdoor store again on the site and taking advantage of that large user base and that user activity. That is definitely one way to aggressively grow the business in a short period of time. I think another model that really merits looking at is for an ad network who typically ad networks, what they do is they partner with a large range of niche sites, and then they reach out to the ad agencies and sell advertising into that space. But because they're partnered sites, they split that revenue with the publishers, like bigfishtackle.com, that are actually serving the inventory, and then the agency pays them direct for the advertising. They pay the publisher for what the publisher serves. So for an ad network like that, there's a big opportunity for arbitraging the inventory, the ad inventory that bigfishtackle.com generates, which is anywhere from 2 to 3 million ad impressions per month collectively. And then rather than paying a publisher, they could, the ad agency would pay them because they own the property. They wouldn't be splitting the revenue associated to the ad buy with the publisher. And one of the kind of scenarios that we looked at previously with an ad network that was interested in buying the business with is they had a client that was at a $5 CPM, and we figured that if they were serving all that inventory on a site they owned, they could get a full return on investment within a 17-month period, a little less than a year and a half, and then they would own the property going forward. So that's certainly another viable model. And then one more, and I'll try to, I know I've been a little long-winded here, so I'll try to cut this short, but certainly a business that had a active ad operations department that could continue to monetize and backfill ad inventory with affiliate programs and higher paying CPMs. There's definitely, in very short order, they could continue to monetize the site and keep it on an upward trend of revenue. I apologize for being a little long-winded there, but I thought that was important to kind of
I think those were very good points. We've already gone through why you're selling the site. Do you have anything more to add to that?
No, I really don't. I think that, it provides an excellent opportunity for someone coming in, a really excellent opportunity for someone coming in with a little bit of infrastructure, either the sales component or the ad operations component, to dramatically increase revenue in a very short order. I think that merits mentioning. But as far as why we're selling, no, I think that, you know, we've been pretty clear on that.
Well, we've had quite a few questions that we've worked in. Is there anything else that you would like to add about the site?
No, I think the only thing that really merits, I think that I really appreciate the amount of coverage you gave as far as scope and how the site works, but I think it's really important if someone is interested in the site itself that you can really get a hands-on, because of the you know, we wanted to touch on some key points. We didn't have that interaction of where they could actually click around the site and kind of look things over. I really recommend, if someone's interested in the site, you can get a really good idea of the 2,000 plus fishing articles on the site, the hundreds of videos, fishing-related videos on the site, how active the forum is, by just visiting the site and kind of clicking around and getting a feel for how comprehensive the content is associated to the site, and what some of the other potential would be.
Okay. Well, Adam Beebe is standing ready to answer any questions about this, and of course, if you're interested in taking a look at any of the other web properties that are available in association with this site, please contact Adam Beebe. So thank you very much for this excellent presentation.
Victoria, thank you. I really appreciate it, and thank you for keeping me on track with all that. It's a lot to swallow in a short period of time. I really appreciate it.
Well, I can see, knowing fishermen are very enthusiastic, so I can see where your enthusiasm is coming through here. And I'm sure that your visitors to the site are equally as enthusiastic. So, all right.
Yeah, it's a great niche to be in. That's for sure.
Well, let's just close out this webinar. And to everyone, we will see you the next time.
Thank you again, Victoria.